Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are in the world. This is Howie, and I'm here to help you win with money. In this episode of Investing 102, we're going to cover the topic of emergency fund. So, where should you store your money for your emergency fund? First of all, what is an emergency fund? So, mostly it's just a place where cash is stored for short term needs. So the emergency fund is designed so that when something bad happens, you have money to still pay the bill that you normally would pay, including your rent, your mortgage, your car payment, cell phones, and everything else. It would be horrible for you to lose your house just because you didn't have next month rent or mortgage. So the emergency fund is designed to have enough money to protect you from those type of risks. Now, how much do you need? So that's the next area of discussion. Most financial experts lean on this concept of 3 to 6 months of expenses. And the reason why they say that is if it takes you about 2 months to find your new job, then 3 months makes sense. If it takes you about 5 months to find a new job, then you should lean on having 6 months of expenses in here. If you work in an industry that is really hard to get a new job, then or if you have two folks like a dual income family and both of you are in really volatile industry, then some people actually like to store 1 year salary in their emergency fund. A lot of depends. If somebody has a state job or a federal job or something that's really hard to get laid off, then a lot of people generally lean on more of the shorter time frame because most families can live off of one income if the other person gets laid off or the company decides to downsize. So these are some things that you have to look at. So in the first level, where should you put your money? And the level 101 thinking is, well, you put it where you get paid. Where do you get your paycheck today? Most people direct deposit into a non-bearing interest checking account or some type of saving account. Even if your checking account was bearing interest, take a look at it. It is so small, it will probably knock you off your feet to know that even if you store 10, 20,000 in this account in 1 year, you may make less than $5. Using the numbers above, if you make about 50 grand, that's like having $9,000 in your emergency fund. If you're using the low end, if you're using the higher end, about 6 months, that's about having $24,000 in your account. Now, if you're making about $100,000, you can see the numbers jump really high. I use the numbers between about having $18,000 saved up to about $48,000 saved up for emergencies. And again, this is to make sure you can pay your mortgage, your car payments, and everything else should something bad happen. The next level is most people use this advice. Well, you should put your money in some type of high yield saving account. So I consider that the level 101 thinking. And there's nothing wrong with it because a high yield saving account does yield a little bit more. And I gave an example from Marcus. Marcus right now is paying 0.05. I actually did check Ally Bank. Ally Bank is also paying close to 0.05, maybe 0.6. But when I checked lately, most of them are around the 0.5. But most of them actually have dropped. I thought last year was a little bit higher, but I was really surprised that high yield saving accounts are only yielding somewhere between 0.4 to 1%. So now that's better than what you're making in your checking account or your savings account. So if you're doing this, you need to level up your thinking and use some type of high yield savings account or some type of online banking. The next level is a little bit more complex, but I'm going to give you some of the options. In the level 102, you can use a Roth IRA as your emergency fund. You can use a credit card, a HELOC, or other lines of credit. Now, you're wondering, well, what are you talking about? And I'll explain this using the line of credit first. If you have a credit card and if you are somebody who's generally out of debt, most people with credit card and are out of debt, they actually pay their monthly credit card balance each month. So what that means is if an emergency ever happened, you can just charge everything up for the next 2, 3, 4 months and you'll still be fine. The same concept of using a HELOC. The only difference is you're leveraging your house. You borrow some money out of your equity from your house. You're using your house as the asset to cover this short-term gap where you may not have an income. And the last area I want to talk about is this personal line of credit, personal loans. I'm not sure have any of you ever tested this, but you can now use a mobile phone app and apply for a line of credit. And in most cases, 10 or 15 minutes, you can get approved. And generally speaking, less than 1 business day later, the money is wired to your account. I actually did test this out. I tested it using 2 different platforms, and they both worked very similar. And the time frame and the level of service was very similar. Both of them were able to wire the money into my account in about 1 business day or less. Now, the last area I wanted to talk about was this Roth IRA. Why would you use a Roth IRA as an emergency fund? So this one's a little bit more complex. Remember what I said? There are some people who don't want to store, $24,000 or $48,000 in cash earning nothing. So what they want to do is put that money into a Roth, right? You can always put $6,000 a year into it. And what most people don't understand is you can always withdraw or remove the principal that you put in. So if I put in year 1, I put in $6,000. Year 2, I put in $6,000. Third year, I put in $6,000. Say third year, I was unemployed. What people don't know is you can withdraw $6,000, you can withdraw $12,000, or you can withdraw any amount between 0 and $18,000 based on the money I put in, as long as you don't withdraw anything above the principal. So like any earnings you cannot withdraw, or you will get penalized for it. So what most people have been doing is they're using this type of investment vehicle for dual purposes. Now, most people don't know this, but I've been doing this for many years. I got my Roth in 1999, and most people don't know. I've been doing this strategy, this level 1 or 2 strategy, for a long time. I was a Dave Ramsey fan and a Larry Burkett fan back in those days, and even maybe 5 years after that. And so it was really weird because I was already one of those people who say, but I don't want to keep 30 or 40 or 50 grand in cash earning nothing. And what I did was every year I funded my IRA. Now back then IRAs were only $2,000 a year. But I funded my IRA. I didn't have a need for it. The chances of me ever needing to use my emergency fund, in my case, was very low. And it wasn't because I didn't have emergencies. I did. And it wasn't because I didn't lose a job. I have. But in the most cases, I was able to get a new job, or whatever my emergency was, I was able to get through it. Like I said, it was just a flat tire or anything else. Even if I didn't have the money to pay for it, I can swipe it on a credit card. And eventually I got out of debt in less than a month or 2. Now, this doesn't work if you're somebody who keeps revolving debt. Because sure, you can always put it on a credit card. But remember, credit cards, the average interest rate is 18%. So you're losing money no matter what. So I don't want to ever pretend that credit cards are a good thing. I'm talking about folks who generally pay off their credit card every month. That's why they use credit cards to do that. But I've been in this mindset for a long time. Regardless of what Dave Ramsey taught, or regardless of what you think, I've been using this concept of I have very little cash at all times. And it worked well. Even in the years where I was unemployed 2 or 3 times in a year. Because what I did was I actually did have to sell some investments. Now let me tell you what that means. When you're unemployed and you got bills to pay, what do? You pay your bills. So whatever money you have dwindles really quickly. What does that do? That forces you to get a job really quickly. And that's what I did. The other way of thinking about this is, we used to teach this concept, pay yourself first. Well, what does that mean? Well, pay yourself first in an investing point of view, where you should always invest Now, I use that concept. I pay myself first all the time. Even when I'm unemployed, I don't shut down or shut off my automatic investments. When I'm unemployed, I'm still investing money into new assets. Again, it sounds dumb to do, absolutely, because your cash flow is very precious. But what it does for me is it forces me to get a job much quicker. I don't have the luxury to sit around for 8 months to decide whether or not I want to take a job. Hopefully that helped you and I explained it. And the last step is much more complex. It's a level 201 thinking. The infinite banking policy is a great way for you to sort of have multi-purpose usage of your cash. So most people who use infinite banking are not really buying it for the death benefit. They're buying these policies. I mean, they are buying it some for death benefit, but they're really using it for other purposes. Some people are doing it to diversify from all their asset classes. It's one of these that you get a guaranteed rate of return. There is some tax-free ways to use it. There is some ways to tap into your cash in advance. So there's a lot of different usage for infinite banking. And this is like sort of the last concept in level 201. Not a lot of people will ever get this need. But I always view this way. The more money you make, you realize the more options you have in life. Like if your net worth never surpasses 100,000, you may never need or understand the need for infinite banking. But if your net worth surpasses $5 million or more, at some point you may say, look, I got way too much money in real estate. I even got way too much money in stock market, because you can have multiple millions in these asset classes, and those asset classes can then swing. They vary, they dip, and they go up and down. So infinite banking solves that. You can put $1 million into an infinite banking policy, and your money won't swing up or down by 8 or 9 or 100, or not 100%, but stock market can dip 20% in a year. And so people forget that. But a whole life policy insurance can bring stability. So it acts like a bond in a rich man's portfolio, and you have other benefits. You can have $1 million portfolio in your infinite banking, and when the market swoons down, you can borrow money out of your policy and buy other assets much cheaper. Now, if you talk to real estate investors, a lot of people have done that in the last recession. If you talk about investing, there are people who've done that. They had other assets where they can tap into, so that when the next crash comes, people had assets to tap into, to borrow money against, to then buy these assets really cheap. When the rest of the world, if you're only buying assets using your paycheck, your 401k plan, think about it. Most people are just putting away less than $200 or $300 a month per paycheck. And so when the crash happens, sometimes these crashes only last 6 months. So 6 months times $300, it means what? You only saved, or you bought the assets cheap for $1,800. That's not enough to change your life. Anyway, I hope you love this video. This is a video on how and where to store your money for emergency fund. If you want to level up your investment thinking, watch my other videos. If you want to watch all the other series, I have a playlist on different topics. Check out my Exposed by Math. I think you're going to love that too. With that being said, hey guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with somebody you think will need this. Hey, don't forget, let's do this together. Let's do this $1 at a time. And as always, have a profitable day. Bye-bye.